I'm writing this not to excuse myself. I know that in the eyes of any impartial reader there is no excuse for me, but to put my thoughts in order, for my thoughts are like coarse salt clinging to wet fingers. Sometimes they stick together, sometimes they slip away, leaving behind a cold, gritty residue. The house I returned to in autumn stands where the city gives way to the swamp, where water and stone argue without end. A low facade once clad in yellow wood, now faded and crusted over. Windows streaked with stains. From the eaves, in clear weather, hang tiny white icicles of salt. In damp weather, the opposite flows back in. The creeping breath of marsh water, the smell of algae and rusty blood. The house passed to me by the will of my cousin-uncle, a stiff, moral man, or so I thought. With his sudden, dry, voiceless death came this house, and his still drier papers. I settled into a corner room on the second floor, the one where behind the mirror and stoveplate there had once been a small fireplace, now plastered over with conspicuous, almost ostentatious care. On the wall, dark rectangles where paintings had once hung. On the desk, my uncle's scribbled papers. On the sill, thick crusts of salt. I wanted, as they say, to put everything in order, sort the documents, bind the accounts, send the curtains to be cleaned, but on the second night, I thought the house whispered. At first it was only a sound, familiar to anyone who has lived near a swamp. Drip, drip, indifferent, endless, like poverty. But here, not from the sink, not from the roof, not from a rotting window frame. The drip, forgive my precision, fell behind the wall, exactly where the fireplace had been so carefully sealed. Drip. A pause, just longer than a heartbeat. Drip. To anyone without my overstrung ear it would have meant nothing. But to me, it held a rhythm, and worse, intention. On the third night I took a candle, a carpenter's mallet, and pressed my ear to the white immaculate plaster. Drip, drip. And sometimes, I swear I heard it more than once, between the drips came a faint tap, not water, a fingernail against wood, a sound that makes your brain shrink into your shoulders like a frightened child. Of course I laughed at myself. Foolish panic. Salt seeps. Yes, it seeps. The walls are damp. They drip. Wherever veins of salt run through brick, water will find its way out. And yet, tap. The next morning I called a mason, an old man, squat, face pale as a boiled root, ran his palm along the wall, smacked his lips and said, "It's laid flush, closed up proper." "Closed what?" I asked. The old man looked down without looking at me. "Well, master, they sealed the fireplace, out of fashion now." I wanted to ask, who sealed it, when, what they did with the hearth, from which that faint, salty odor still drifted, but he was already tipping his cap. "By nightfall the brine will pull. Everything pulls here." Brine. Solonets, he called it. A strange word, where I heard not salt, but seal. Something in that flush, that too perfect flush, set the first itch of suspicion in me. Later that day, rummaging through my uncle's chest, I found a small leather notebook, the edges stained from sweat. Inside, neat rows of dates. Besides some, only a tiny ink dot, almost invisible. Among them was a day I hated to recall. The day my younger brother drowned in a drainage ditch we'd been digging. By that date, 2 dots, a dot and a dot. At the bottom, in another hand, blue ink. Seal applied. Forgive me, I wander, but those 2 dots, that seal, they fused at once with the drip in the wall. I heard it, yes, heard how swamp justice was done, water mixing with salt, delivering blows against the sealed place, evenly, mercilessly, and I, a man who avoided direct acts all his life, fetched a crowbar. The first strike, the wall held. Trembling, I found the seam, neat, smooth, and, God help me, inside the seam was fresher than the plaster outside. The lime was bright, salt not yet crusted. Beneath it, brick crumbling like sugar. I won't describe how furiously and hopefully, hope for what, relief, I knocked them out. I'll only say, by then the tapping no longer hid. It answered each of my blows, politely, as if from inside. Yes, yes, here. I pulled free the first brick, then the second. Dust filled my nose, salt stung my lips. Behind the wall was not cold, but heat, stale and trapped, and there, wedged where the flue should have been, a narrow wooden box wrapped in once bloody cloth, now dry and brown. All the judges, doctors, pastors flashed through my mind. Of course, you'll say. But the box was empty. Empty. Only dust, a black pinch of salt, and, I don't sleep even now as I write this, a small round object, like a seal. A leaden tag stamped with my uncle's initials. It clung loosely to the wood, like a lip on frozen iron. On its reverse, the impression of wax that smelled strongly of resin. I froze. Behind me, from within the wall, came now no drip, no water at all, but the deliberate, patient sound. Tap, tap, tap. I held the candle closer. The flame shuddered like a startled bird and revealed what the box had concealed. Beyond, someone had once cut a narrow shaft, not down, not up, but into the dark. Not a passage must lead somewhere, but a socket, a tunnel without end. From it breathed not swamp cold, not earth cold, but the draft of another house, where the air moves differently, and from it, tap, tap, faint, steady. I had one more act of courage left. I tied a cord to my waist, lit another candle, and slid my shoulder inside. Stupid? Yes. Funny? No. Because only half a yard in, my eyes struck not earth, not stone, not bone, though I'd half expected that. But a board nailed from the other side, and on it, claw marks, deep as if in soft plaster, and 2 dots in ink, side by side. The same, too. The tapping wasn't water, stone, or crack. It was the dry knock of a fingernail bone on wood. I jerked back so violently my candle scorched the plaster, leaving a black tear. Behind me, no one, the room, empty. Night pressed its face to the windows like the eyes of the dead. I wanted to scream, to call someone. Who? The old mason, to smile and say, "Seals set." The police, to lock me inside. I stood like a child under a sheet and listened. Tap, tap, fainter, fainter. And, yes, I heard it. Don't argue. Don't rob me of my shame. Nan. Nanem. Some. Or nam or nam. Fan. Just lips scraping dry salt. Nay, don't. Breathe. I swear I heard that. Like before an X-ray. Like before the stroke of an axe. Like before a word you mustn't say. At dawn I sealed it back. Mixed lime, smoothed it flush, restored the wall's innocent face. Yet each patch, as it dried, showed 2 faint dots. I scraped, cursed, whispered curses. In this house loud words fall like stones. But the dots kept returning. From salt, from dust, from the air itself, like birthmarks. By evening they stared like eyes. I meant to leave, abandon the house, send the papers to the archives, the manuscripts to the library. I even stepped out with my bag, but at the threshold in the light, I saw it. What? The seal, round, lead, stamped, lying like a coin I don't remember discarding, warm to the touch. So I came back. The house outside looked utterly changed, not from the plaster, but because I nearly understood. Yes, I'll allow the word. Nearly understood where those unknown had gone, whose nails scraped the board, where my brother perhaps had vanished as a child, where my uncle stared when he marked his dots. No, I can't give you an address, but I know this. Between our walls, our words, our intentions, there is a hollow, not the one in our lungs, another, and some, the ones marked with 4 dots, pass into it. And sometimes on damp nights, they knock from the other side to see if we'll answer. Now, quieter. Drip, faint, tap, gone. I still draw the curtains, lock the door. I don't curse my uncle. His dots didn't save him either. I don't curse the house. It only holds what we put into it. I curse only my ear, greedy as a confessor's, still straining, still waiting for that patient tap. And when salt streaks the wall at night, I look to see if 2 dots appear. If one day, and I am aging, everything in me sounds louder now, you don't find me in the house. Don't search the swamp, don't call the mason. Just remove 1 brick. The one where the salt makes 2 small childish dots. And if you hear the whisper, don't breathe. Not because it's a command, but because only in breathless silence can you hear what those gone from our rooms are saying, in that hollow where words have no voice. I set down a dot now, only 1. The second, I think, will be set for me. If you made it all the way to the end, then you're exactly the kind of person I'm looking for. Hit that subscribe button. It really means a lot to me. I hope I can keep bringing you more stories, to make you smile, or maybe, to scare you.